Most Christian men who feel lost aren't necessarily lacking faith. I think they're just lacking structure. Let's take a look at Hebrews 12, verses 5 through 7. He says, "My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord, he disciplines the one he loves, and he chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God is treating you as sons." The writer of Hebrews, he's speaking to believers who were struggling at the time. Some were very discouraged, some were drifting, and some, well, they were just beginning to lose their spiritual steadiness. And life had become difficult at the time. Faith, it felt heavier than expected. And the writer, he reminds them of something they had forgotten. God does not abandon his sons. He trains them. And this language, it's very intentional, not comfort, training, not escape, formation. And the passage assumes something that many guys overlook. Sonship and discipline, they're connected and they're not opposites. There's a word in this passage that most men read over very quickly. My son. Not servant, not follower. Son. And the discipline described here, it's not a punishment. It's what happens inside of a relationship. And the writer then he says something that cuts a little bit deeper than most men expect. Do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord. In other words, don't dismiss it, don't avoid it, don't resent it. Because the presence of discipline, it means something really important. It just means that God has not abandoned the work. But there is another phrase that sits quietly in the text, nor be weary when reproved. And some men, well, they ignore discipline and others grow tired of it. Correction comes, conviction comes, structure, it's offered, and instead of receiving it, the man withdraws. Not into open rebellion necessarily, but in fatigue. And that's where the drift begins. And this passage, it assumes something uncomfortable. A son can resist training, not because he hates his father, but because discipline. This passage, well, it exposes something very uncomfortable. A son, he can resist training, not because he hates his father, but because discipline exposes belief, and structure reveals whether faith is steady or if it's convenient. When prayer becomes inconsistent, when scripture is avoided, when spiritual habits weaken, it rarely begins with rejection of God. It just begins with quiet resistance to structure. And over time, something shifts. Faith remains in theory, but formation totally disappears. And the man, he still believes, yet he feels lost. Not because God moved, but because discipline slowly disappeared from his life. And without any structure, identity, it becomes unstable. Not instantly, gradually. Consider something honestly here. When spiritual habits weaken, was the problem really belief or was it structure? Was prayer abandoned because faith disappeared or because discipline became inconvenient? Was scripture neglected because it lost its value or because life filled the space where structure once existed? Quiet drift rarely feels dramatic. It feels slow. It's a missed morning. It's a distracted prayer. It's a day without scripture. Then another, then another. Eventually, the man looks at his life and then he asks a very quiet question. Why do I feel spiritually lost? The answer is rarely mysterious. Structure formed identity once, and then when structure faded, clarity faded with it. But the text in Hebrews offers something very important. Discipline, it's not condemnation. Correction, it's not rejection. Training is not abandonment. It's evidence of a sonship. And a father trains a son because the relationship, it matters, not because it doesn't. So the question isn't whether a man has drifted. Most men have. The real question is simpler. Will the man return to structure? Will he accept discipline again? Will he allow formation to rebuild what drift weakened? Because the passage, it doesn't promise ease. It promises something better. God trains his sons. A man rarely becomes lost in a single moment. It usually happens through quiet neglect of the discipline that once actually formed him. And the question worth asking tonight is very simple. Did faith weaken or did the structure disappear? If this video resonated with you, I've got another video that you might like to watch. It's called Spiritual Control Isn't Willpower, It's Spiritual Discipline. And it actually explores how discipline actually rebuilds spiritual stability. And take a moment with that one next. Victory will come.